All right, welcome to Friday morning. I hope everybody's having a good day so far. Last time I was on, I couldn't actually see comments from Facebook. So if you happen to be seeing this, maybe just type something into the chat, and I just want to see if it's going to pop up. So yeah, if you're on Facebook and watching this, just enter something into the chat, and I want to see if I can see it. Looks like it seems to be working. All right, so we're just going to kind of get into this a little bit. So the idea of taking aim, this is an idea that kind of incorporates a lot of goal setting, but it's a little bit more than that as well. Now, obviously, in a strength and conditioning, personal training environment, we deal with this a lot. There's actually even a lot of trainers who say, they wouldn't even be able to help you if we don't know what your goals are. I don't think that's necessarily true, simply because some people just don't know what they want. So there's an aspect of that for sure, but taking aim is actually a little bit more than that. So it's a little bit more broader, right? Now, when you get into goal setting, there's sort of this idea of creating SMART goals for yourself. SMART goals is like an acronym. It really comes up if you've come across goal setting in like a corporate setting, where they're looking at creating goals that are going to help you be more productive. So what that acronym is the S stands for a specific goal. A specific goal would be something that is direct, detailed, and meaningful. Then you've got something that is measurable. So typically they want to quantify it. So in most corporate settings, you're looking at something that is quantifiable to be more productive. Then they look at something that is attainable as well. So it should be something that is within your reach. A relevant goal, which is the R in SMART, would be a goal that sort of aligns with yourself and the vision for where you see yourself kind of in the future. And it should be time-based. So the time-based idea basically is just giving you something that will keep you a little bit more accountable to what is going on. And so that's great, but in a real life situation here, outside of the corporate setting, you're probably going to want something that's a little bit more broader than that. For example, I have a friend who he wants to buy a professional sports team. So although that may be specific, measurable, I suppose it's measurable. Attainable, I don't think a lot of people would look at that as an attainable goal because that's something that requires like billions of dollars, but certainly something that could be achieved. Relevant and time-based. I mean, obviously there's no time on that. That's something that is going to keep him busy for quite some time. Anyway, taking aim requires a little bit more than being confined to that little acronym of a SMART goal. Taking aim, I start to think of the idea of an archer. So somebody like a marksman, for example. I actually had an opportunity to work with a pretty good marksman. He was a professional shooter. Ended up training a lot of people for like RCMP and that kind of stuff. He was actually one of the world's best shooters in Canada, anyway. And what we kind of found was that in order to start taking aim at something, we actually need to know what the target is. So that would kind of be the first step, is trying to figure out what you're actually going to take aim at. And in order to do that, you need to ready yourselves. So what does that mean? You're going to have to point yourself in roughly the right direction. You're going to have to stand up tall. You're going to need to create a bit of a base of support under you that's going to be able to support where you want to get to and where you want to go. You're going to need to be strong through your core. You're going to be strong enough to actually draw the bow back, have that target in sight, and then actually release the arrow. So there's a lot going on before we even get to this idea of goal setting. And that's really more what taking aim is. And when it comes to taking aim, we tend to fall into a few issues. So the first one being, I talked about having something to aim at. And the problem there is quite typically we find people sort of aiming at the wrong things or not knowing what to aim at all. So in order to narrow that down, there's a few things that you can sort of do to help yourself in that process. One of them being, just stop doing the things that you know are wrong. So if you understand that there's something getting in the way of what you want to accomplish, you need to try to stop doing that. And with that, you need to stop doing the things that you could stop doing. So the things that you know are wrong, because sometimes we're doing things that are wrong and we just don't even know that they're wrong. And on top of that, we have to be able to have some sort of control over them so that we can stop doing them. So there are definitely things that you should be doing and things that you shouldn't be doing. For example, you might be resentful, angry. Those are the sorts of things that can be really difficult to stop. Think about like bad habits. Those can get in the way of this idea of taking aim at something that's a little bit more important to you. Quite often, habits are difficult to break. There's a bit of a pattern to them. And there's something that requires a little bit of effort as well on your end. So these are the things that we sort of repeatedly do that are difficult to change. You want to stop thinking about the things that you can't affect. So an example of that would be something like the weather. Like we can't control the weather, at least not independently. So simply because something's raining is probably not a good reason for you to prevent you from stopping doing whatever it is that you're wanting to get forward. And then the other thing you want to do is, when we start thinking about the things that we can affect, the things that are within our control, you want to start with the small things. There's a really great book called The Compound Effect, where it talks about sort of trying to get 1% better every time, or just make a small change. And then the next day you make another small change, and you're just working on these smaller things, and you're going to end up creating sort of a compound interest on all these little things that you start to change. And before that, you're going to create a bit of a momentum moving forward. And before you know it, you're going to have plenty of momentum going forward for whatever it is that you're taking aim at. Now, doing all of that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a clear picture of what you're actually aiming at or what your reality might be in order to take aim at something, but it's going to give you a good start. So if we can go through and define some of these things for ourselves, we'll be able to kind of get us into a position where we can start to pursue things at a more meaningful level. All right. So once we've kind of done that, the next thing we want to do is think about creating a schedule. So when I look at scheduling, I don't look at it like it's a crystallized schedule that everything has to happen at a certain time. I don't think it has to be balanced either. I think it needs to be balanced in the long term. So when you look at creating a schedule, it should be fairly balanced over the course of a year or maybe a month, but maybe not necessarily like a week or even a day, for sure not a day. All right. Quite often when we're looking at, like, a good example is this issue of work-life balance, which comes up a lot in interviews and when I'm talking with people. And what that is typically what gets in the way of things is that people are looking for a work-life balance where they're going to be able to do, say 40 hours of work a week and 40 hours of whatever else that they want to do. And that's perfectly fine. It's a good way to think about it, except that it's going to get in the way of things. So there was a really good article that I read a little while ago, and I reread it a few days ago. And it basically says that you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. So when you think about being a good family man, or you want, really great health, you want to be successful in your career, financially stable, It's certainly easy to work on like one of those things at a time, but you may not be able to have them all at the same time. So if you think about this over the course of a week, maybe Monday we're spending some time preparing our meals for the week. And then Tuesday is going to be more of a corporate idea. So you're going to spend a lot more time on work and making sure you're successful there. Wednesday, maybe you're going over your finances for the week, making sure they're sort of all caught up and not going over. And then, maybe by Thursday, we're looking at getting in your workouts and that kind of thing. So creating some sort of balance, like you want to focus on one area or two areas. Once you get to like 3 or 4 areas, it can be quite difficult to actually accomplish everything. So you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. So it's a good idea to sort of prioritize what might need to come first. Now, it's perfectly reasonable to say that maybe only 20% of your day is based on responsibility. So what that means is like maybe the reality of the situation that you're in requires that you can only spend 20% of your day doing something that is responsibly going to affect the aim that you're taking. And then maybe the rest of the day, like the 80%, maybe you're just, you're watching, you're binge watching Netflix or something like that, because that's just all that you can muster at that time. And that's perfectly reasonable. And especially in a time like this where we're going through, we're going through a shutdown where people are under quarantine and whatnot. A lot of people have lost their jobs. So there's a lot of hard emotions that we have to wrestle with. We're unsure of the future. Not really sure what's going on. So it might be completely reasonable to just think that, 20% of my day can be focused on productivity and moving forward. And then the other 80% is, focused on other things. Maybe it's distractions or escapism or something else that you're interested in. And we need to be okay with that. Now, that being said, it could be the case that you fall behind a little bit. So if you happen to be behind, now this is a good example when it comes to, say, weight loss, for example. Like if you were wanting to lose 10 pounds by July and you've spent a couple of weeks maybe not getting your workouts in, not eating so well, then we might need to spend a little bit more time trying to catch up a little bit. So we need to be able to balance this idea of responsibility throughout the day and throughout the week, and then also throughout the month. So the other thing that I like to do with that is have a bit of a reward structure built in. Good morning, Christina. Hope you're doing well. A bit of a reward structure built in. So what I like to do is, maybe Monday through Saturday, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to get done all the things that I need to get done so that by Sunday I can sleep in. That would be kind of a reward ratio value that you could implement in being productive and still giving yourself the opportunity to relax. Now, with that, when we start talking about ratios of reward, we need to be able to negotiate with ourselves, because we can become very self-destructive very, very quickly. And when you're negotiating with yourself we want to remember that the idea here is that we're going to have a productive life. We're going to be taking on something that's far more important than our own being and moving forward towards that and accomplishing some really great things. And in order to do that, we have to make sure we're not just tearing ourselves down. You need to negotiate with yourself in a way where you're going to satisfy your own thoughts and your own feelings on all of that. When we start doing that kind of stuff, we can really start to spiral downward as well. But having an honest negotiation about the reality of the situation that you're in can actually create that compound effect moving forward. So you're going to end up with a lot more positive momentum going forward, and you're going to end up achieving quite a few pretty miraculous things over the time of like 6 months or something like that. We need to understand that this stuff isn't going to happen right away or very easily, but it does happen eventually. So this topic of taking aim is something I'm going to be covering over the next several days. I think I'm actually going to shut this one down for the day because I've got a few other things I need to get to. So just a shorter video today. You can kind of think about the stuff that I talked about in this video over the weekend, and we're going to pick things up on Monday. So taking aim. If you like this video, give it a like, give it a share, and then you can look to look to share it around and whatnot. And I will see you all on Monday. So nothing over the weekend, and then I'll be back on Monday. All right. Have a great weekend.